Millions of people are taking thyroid medication every single morning and still waking up exhausted, still gaining weight, still freezing cold in a warm room, and nobody is telling them why. The medication replaces the hormone, but it does absolutely nothing to fix the underlying reason the thyroid broke down in the first place. And in the vast majority of cases, that reason is something happening in your daily life right now, today, without you even suspecting it. Welcome back. Today we're going to walk through 10 everyday habits that are silently blocking your thyroid from ever truly healing. And when I say thyroid function, I don't just mean the gland sitting in your neck. I mean every single system in the body that feeds into thyroid health. Let's start with some essential background so the rest of this makes complete sense. Your thyroid system works like a chain of command. At the top, your hypothalamus releases a signal hormone, which tells your pituitary gland to release thyroid-stimulating hormone, which then tells your actual thyroid gland to get to work. But the gland itself needs raw materials, specifically iodine, the amino acid tyrosine, and 3 supporting minerals, selenium, iron, and zinc. Without these, the whole production line stalls. And even when the gland produces hormones, there's another layer, something called the reverse T3 pathway. Here's how to think about it. Your thyroid produces a hormone called T3, but it produces 2 versions. One that's active and one that's a mirror image called reverse T3 that fits into your cell receptors but does absolutely nothing. It's like a key that fits the lock but can't turn it. Your body deliberately makes more of this reverse T3 when it wants to slow down thyroid activity, which it does under stress, during starvation, or when something has gone wrong. Add to this that thyroid hormones travel through the bloodstream bound to a carrier protein, and only the tiny free fraction can actually do its job. And the dominant hormone the thyroid produces, T4, is completely inactive until it gets converted into T3. Every single one of these steps must work. Most people only focus on the gland. This is why most people stay stuck. So let's count these down. At number 10, not eating enough fat. When you severely restrict fat or slash calories, your body reads this as a famine signal. It responds by turning down your metabolic thermostat, converting less T4 into active T3, and ramping up production of that useless reverse T3 to block your receptors. Fat is the most satiating, calorie-dense nutrient. Cut it too aggressively, and your entire thyroid axis interprets this as a survival emergency. You can have perfectly normal thyroid hormone levels on a blood test and still have almost no active hormone reaching your cells. Number 9 is something almost everyone does without a second thought: drinking unfiltered tap water. The problem here is fluoride and chlorine, both added intentionally to municipal water. Fluoride, chlorine, and iodine sit in the same chemical family. They compete directly with iodine for absorption. The more fluoride and chlorine in your system, the less iodine your thyroid can actually use. This is not speculation. From the mid-1800s through the mid-1900s, fluoride was literally prescribed as a treatment to suppress an overactive thyroid because it works so effectively as a thyroid suppressor. 2 liters of tap water delivers close to the dosage that was therapeutically used to slow thyroid activity. And if you're using standard fluoride toothpaste, check the back of the tube. There's a warning that accidental swallowing requires contacting poison control. A whole house carbon filter removes the majority of chlorine, including what you absorb through shower steam. For fluoride in drinking water, a reverse osmosis system is your most effective option. Habit 8 is eating unfermented soy, and most people consume far more of it than they realize. Unfermented soy contains compounds called genistein and didzine, which directly inhibit thyroid peroxidase, the enzyme responsible for manufacturing thyroid hormones inside the gland. They also block iodine uptake, a double hit. The key distinction is fermentation. Traditionally fermented soy products like miso, tempeh, and natto largely neutralize these effects. The problem is that in most of the Western world, the most commonly consumed form is soy protein isolate, found in protein powders, protein bars, meal replacements, and soy milk, and it is loaded with these active compounds in their unfermented thyroid-disrupting form. Number 7 is chronic cardio training or overtraining in general. Long, grinding aerobic sessions where your heart rate stays elevated in that huffing and puffing zone, 140 to 170 beats per minute for extended periods. Flood your body with cortisol. Elevated cortisol triggers the body to produce more reverse T3, shutting down thyroid receptor function. The body interprets excessive exercise as a form of resource drain, similar to starvation, and responds accordingly by conserving metabolic energy. Short, intense exercise actually supports thyroid recovery. It's the long, sustained cardio grind that causes damage. Worth noting, a completely sedentary lifestyle also suppresses the thyroid. It reduces T4 to T3 conversion and increases reverse T3. The goal is appropriate challenge, not excessive demand, and not total inactivity. Habit 6 is a diet deficient in selenium, zinc, and iodine, which describes the standard modern Western diet almost perfectly. Selenium is required for the enzyme that converts T4 into active T3. It's also what your body uses to produce glutathione peroxidase, your thyroid's internal cleanup crew. Every time the thyroid produces hormones, it generates hydrogen peroxide as a byproduct. And without enough selenium-powered glutathione peroxidase, that hydrogen peroxide accumulates and slowly corrodes thyroid tissue from the inside. Zinc is needed at multiple points. It triggers the hypothalamus signal at the very beginning of the chain, supports T4 to T3 conversion in the middle, and is required for proper receptor binding at the end. You need all three, selenium, zinc, and iodine, in adequate amounts for the full process to function. At number 5, excess omega-6 fatty acids, primarily from seed and vegetable oils, canola, soybean, sunflower, corn oil, and most commercially processed oils. Overconsumption of omega-6 drives up arachidonic acid, which triggers widespread inflammation throughout the body. Thyroid tissue is particularly vulnerable to inflammatory damage. This matters even more because so much thyroid disease is autoimmune in origin, and systemic inflammation feeds and amplifies autoimmune activity. Our ancestors maintained roughly equal amounts of omega-6 and omega-3 in their diet. The modern Western diet skews that ratio to approximately 20-1 in favor of omega-6. That imbalance is a direct driver of the inflammatory environment that keeps the thyroid under siege. Habit 4. Poor sleep and chronic blue light exposure. Thyroid-stimulating hormone follows a circadian rhythm surging between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m., but only if you're actually asleep during those hours. Disrupted sleep during this window cuts the TSH surge and reduces thyroid stimulation below what your body needs. Sound sleep supports melatonin production, which directly protects thyroid tissue. Stress and fragmented sleep push the body toward cortisol instead, which suppresses melatonin. Blue light from phones, tablets, and screens directly blunts melatonin production. Research consistently shows that shift workers have significantly higher rates of thyroid dysfunction, a direct reflection of how profoundly circadian disruption damages thyroid health over time. Number 3 is chronic stress, the kind that doesn't switch off. Persistent high stress means persistently elevated cortisol, and cortisol interferes with thyroid function at every level simultaneously. It reduces TSH secretion from the pituitary, so the thyroid gets less stimulation. It reduces T4 to T3 conversion, so less active hormone is produced. It upregulates the enzyme that produces reverse T3, so receptors get blocked. And it increases thyroid-binding globulin, so that more of whatever hormone exists remains bound and inactive. chronic stress essentially simulates a total resource emergency, and the thyroid is one of the first systems the body sacrifices to survive it. At number 2, gluten, especially modern hybridized gluten, and this is critical if you have Hashimoto's, which enormous numbers of people have without knowing it, because antibody testing is rarely ordered. Here's the mechanism. The gluten molecule bears a structural resemblance to thyroid peroxidase, the enzyme that produces thyroid hormones. When your immune system activates to attack gluten, it cross-reacts with thyroid tissue because of that similarity. It's called molecular mimicry, and it's a well-established immunological phenomenon. Gluten also degrades a protein called zonulin, which holds the gut lining together. When that barrier breaks down, you get intestinal permeability, leaky gut, which is one of the primary triggers for autoimmunity. And once autoimmunity is firing, it intensifies the attack on the thyroid. Up to 90% of hypothyroidism in the Western world is autoimmune in origin. Gluten, sugar, and seed oils together create gut dysbiosis that further impairs thyroid function, because healthy gut bacteria handle roughly 20% of total T4 to T3 conversion in the body. Now, a critical nuance on iodine. The thyroid requires iodine. It carries the highest iodine concentration of any tissue in the body. Iodine deficiency causes the thyroid to enlarge and remain underactive. That's straightforward. But with autoimmune thyroid disease, particularly Hashimoto's, it becomes much more complex. Supplementing iodine in a Hashimoto's context ramps up TPO enzyme activity, which increases hydrogen peroxide production as a byproduct. If you also lack selenium, which you almost certainly do if you're iodine deficient, that hydrogen peroxide isn't cleared efficiently and causes oxidative damage inside the thyroid. It also makes the thyroid more metabolically active, which makes it more visible to the antibodies already attacking it, driving antibody counts even higher. This is why Dr. Ashley Monroe always emphasizes, if you have Hashimoto's, the priority must be calming the autoimmune response first, healing the gut, reducing inflammation, bringing antibodies down, before introducing iodine supplementation, and then doing so at low doses alongside adequate selenium. And the number one habit blocking thyroid recovery: insulin resistance and blood sugar instability. Insulin resistance clogs the liver, and this matters enormously because the liver performs 60% of all T4 to T3 conversion in the body. The gut handles another 20%. Together, that's 80% of your conversion happening outside the thyroid itself. Compromise the liver with insulin resistance, and you've immediately cut your active thyroid hormone output by more than half, even if your thyroid gland is working perfectly. On top of that, chronically elevated insulin drives systemic inflammation, which amplifies the autoimmune cycle. And every blood sugar crash triggers a cortisol spike, delivering the triple blow of reduced TSH, increased reverse T3, and worsened T4 to T3 conversion simultaneously. The deeper truth here is that thyroid health is not a gland problem. It's a whole body balance problem. Every system we've discussed today feeds into thyroid function. The solution isn't a single supplement or a single medication tweak. It's removing what's disrupting the system: the wrong fats, the unfiltered water, the blood sugar roller coaster, the chronic stress, the sleep disruption, the inflammatory diet. Give the body what it genuinely needs, eliminate what's working against it, and your physiology has a remarkable capacity to restore itself. The harder part is that modern life is engineered in ways that work against this at nearly every turn. But knowing these mechanisms is the first real step toward getting out of the cycle. If this gave you clarity, share it with someone who's been struggling with thyroid symptoms for years and can't figure out why. Because that person is probably doing several of these things daily without realizing it. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss content like this.